What happens when America's most unpredictable former president sits across from one of late-night television's sharpest tongues, expecting a softball chat, only to find himself ambushed by pointed questions? What was supposed to be a friendly sit-down turned into the year's most explosive moment on live TV. Tonight, we're breaking down the fiery clash that ended with Donald Trump storming off the Fox News set, leaving Greg Gutfeld stunned, and millions of viewers glued to their screens. This wasn't just an interview. It was a collision of pride, politics, and two larger-than-life personalities, and nobody saw it coming. The Fox News studio buzzed with its usual pre-show energy. Gutfeld Tonight was about to go live. For weeks, producers had worked tirelessly to lock in this booking. Trump, agreeing to what his team insisted would be a light interview, designed to highlight his latest political moves. Ratings gold, plain and simple. Greg Gutfeld, known for his razor-sharp humor and boundary-pushing style, prepped what he thought would be a lively but manageable conversation. But Greg had no plans to go easy. 30 seconds to air, the floor director called. Trump adjusted his trademark red tie, glancing around the familiar Fox set. He'd been here countless times. Usually everything went according to plan. But something about tonight felt different. The red light blinked on. America was watching. "Welcome back to Gutfeld Tonight," Greg announced, his trademark smirk in place. "Joining me now, the 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump." "Great to be here, Greg." Trump leaned forward, hands clasped. "Always love coming on your show. You've got the best ratings on cable news. Everybody knows it." "Appreciate that." Greg replied smoothly, his tone shifting. "But let's get right into it. You've been making headlines about election integrity, court battles, investigations. Here's the question. At some point, don't you think it's time to move forward instead of relitigating the past?" The air tightened. This wasn't the softball Trump expected. "Well, Greg," Trump started, his voice measured but edged. "When you say move forward, what do you mean? Because protecting election integrity isn't living in the past. It's safeguarding our future." Greg leaned back, clearly enjoying the pressure he'd applied. "Come on. The courts have ruled. Recount's done. Investigation's closed. Doesn't harping on it now just look like? Sour grapes?" Trump's jaw stiffened. He repeated the phrase like an insult. "Sour grapes? I'm surprised at you, Greg. Fox News used to care about real journalism. Now you're just parroting the mainstream narrative." Greg's eyebrow arched. His timing was flawless. "Oh, so now Fox isn't real journalism? That's rich. Coming from the guy who spent 4 years calling us his favorite network. What changed? That we're finally asking questions instead of nodding along?" The studio's energy shifted. This wasn't a safe interview anymore. It was a duel. Trump leaned in, voice sharper. "I was told this interview would be about my projects, my vision for America's future. Instead, you sound like CNN," Greg chuckled, which only twisted the knife. "Mr. President, with respect, if you can't handle questions from a conservative comedian on Fox News, how do you plan to handle the presidency again? This is pretty basic stuff." The line landed like a punch. Trump's face flushed. His hands, steady until now, began slicing the air as his voice rose. "Handle questions? Greg, I've handled more hostile press than any president in history." Trump snapped, his voice rising. "But there's a difference between legitimate questions and whatever this is." "And what exactly am I doing right now?" Gutfeld pressed, leaning forward, curiosity laced with provocation. "You're grandstanding," Trump shot back without hesitation. "You're trying to make yourself look tough by taking cheap shots at me on live television. It's disappointing, Greg. I thought you were better than that." The words landed like a stone in the room. Gutfeld's grin faded, his pride clearly stung. "Grandstanding," he echoed, his tone sharper now. "Mr. President, I'm doing my job. If asking you to explain your positions counts as grandstanding, maybe the problem isn't with my questions. Trump leaned forward, voice dropping lower but edged with heat. Your job, Greg, used to be making people laugh and standing up for conservative values. Now you sound like you're auditioning for a job at MSDNC, MSNBC. Gutfeld corrected automatically, then smirked. And you know what? That slip, that's exactly what I mean. Every time someone challenges you, you attack instead of answering. The tension was suffocating. Camera operators exchanged uneasy glances. Producers in the control room hovered between panic and exhilaration. Ratings were spiking, phones ringing with executives shouting the same command. Don't cut away. Trump sat back, narrowing his eyes. You know what your problem is, Greg? You've gotten too comfortable. You sit in this little studio cracking jokes about people actually out there, fighting for this country. And you think that makes you important. Gutfeld's jaw tightened. He'd been insulted on air before, but this was different. This was personal. Too comfortable? Gutfeld said, his voice icy now. I've been fighting the culture war on television for more than a decade. Just because I use humor doesn't mean I don't take conservative principles seriously. Conservative principles? Trump scoffed, dripping disdain. Greg, you're parroting liberal talking points about election integrity. You're doing their work for them. How is that conservative? The jab landed. Gutfeld's composure cracked. Liberal talking points. Are you serious? These are basic questions. Questions any serious candidate could answer without melting down on live TV. Meltdown? Trump thundered, his voice booming. This isn't a meltdown. This is me defending myself against a so-called ally who ambushes me on his own show. I've negotiated with dictators who showed me more respect than this. The studio audience gasped. Gutfeld abruptly stood up from behind his desk, something he rarely did. The sudden movement shifted the tone. This wasn't just television anymore. Respect? Gutfeld shot back, his voice cutting. You came on my show, Mr. President. Nobody forced you. And now you're comparing me to dictators because I dared ask about your election claims. I'm comparing your tactics, Trump growled, pushing himself up from his chair as well. The ambush. The gotcha questions. The disrespect. I accomplished more in 4 years than most politicians do in a lifetime. And you're treating me like some second-rate guest. The studio froze. Cameras whirred. Lights hummed. But the air was thick with dread. The audience sat in stunned silence, terrified even to shift in their seats. This wasn't political theater anymore. It was a showdown. This was no longer television theater. This was two men with towering egos, locked in a raw, personal battle of wills, broadcast live to millions. Gutfeld shook his head slowly, almost in disbelief. Accomplished more? Mr. President, you lost the last election. That's not spin. That's not a talking point. That's a fact. And instead of facing it and moving forward, you're attacking anyone who won't play along with the denial. The words landed like a slap. Trump's face darkened, shifting from red to nearly purple. Lost the election? Greg, you just showed the entire country who you really are. You repeated the single biggest lie in American political history. On live television. The biggest lie? Gutfeld snapped back, his voice rising. No, Mr. President. The biggest lie is telling Americans their democracy doesn't work, that their votes don't matter, that the system is rigged. That's the poison. That's the lie. Trump stepped toward the desk, his Secret Service detail stiffening just off camera. Democracy doesn't work when elections are stolen, Greg. And the fact that you can't, or won't, see that tells me exactly where your loyalties lie. My loyalties? Gutfeld's voice cracked with anger, his composure slipping. My loyalties are to the truth, to conservative principles, to the Constitution, not to one man's ego, or his refusal to face reality. The exchange was personal now, vicious in a way neither man had planned. Trump's finger jabbed across the desk, trembling with fury. You want to talk about the Constitution? I swore an oath to defend it. That's what I've been doing. Meanwhile, you sit there defending the people tearing it apart. I'm asking you questions! Gutfeld exploded, his TV polish gone. That's what happens in a free society. If you can't take questions from friendly media, how do you expect to take the White House again? Trump laughed, but it was bitter and jagged. Friendly media? Greg, you've just proven my point about fake news. If this is what counts as friendly, then Fox has fallen further than I ever imagined. Fake news? Gutfeld barked, gesturing wildly. You're the one throwing personal insults. At me, at this network. You questioned my integrity, my commitment to conservative values. I asked you about policy, and you turned it into a character attack. The control room was chaos. The floor director waved desperately for a cut to commercial, but the higher-ups refused. The ratings were skyrocketing. This train wreck was must-see television. Trump leaned in, his voice lower, more dangerous. Character assassination. I'm telling you what everyone can see. You've changed. Success went to your head. Now you think you can treat me like some punchline? I treat everyone the same. Gutfeld shot back, though his voice wavered as Trump drew closer. I ask tough questions. I challenge positions. I hold people accountable. That's journalism. Journalism? Trump spat the word. This isn't journalism. This is a hit job. And the fact you're doing it on Fox, after I made this network what it is, tells America everything it needs to know. Gutfeld stepped back, putting the desk as a barrier. Made this network? Fox News was successful before you, Mr. President, and it'll be successful long after you're gone. This network doesn't exist to serve your ambitions. The words pierced deep. Trump's voice dropped to a chilling quiet. Long after I'm gone? Greg, without me, Fox News would still be playing second fiddle to CNN. I turned this network into appointment television. I gave it ratings beyond anything it ever dreamed of. And this... He gestured around the studio, fury radiating. This is how I'm repaid. Gutfeld saw the opening and pressed harder. Loyalty, Mr. President, belongs to the truth, to the viewers, not to you. If you wanted a propaganda arm, you came to the wrong place. The word hit like a grenade. Trump's last thread of composure snapped. Propaganda? You're calling my presidency propaganda? I fought for this country every day for 4 years, while people like you sat in air-conditioned studios cracking jokes. People like me? Gutfeld fired back, his voice trembling with fury. What's that supposed to mean? Are you questioning my patriotism now? My service to conservative causes? My love of this country? Both men were flushed, voices raised, their tempers boiling over. The studio lights blazed hotter, the cameras zoomed closer, and millions of viewers sat frozen as this unprecedented clash unfolded in real time. Trump froze completely, staring at Gutfeld with a look of pure betrayal. The silence stretched for what felt like minutes, though it was only seconds. Viewers at home could feel the weight of the pause, the kind of silence that swallows air out of the room. When Trump finally spoke, his voice was low, almost shaking with fury. You think that's funny? You think that's clever, Greg? You sit there in your little chair, smirking for the cameras, and you think you can erase what I did for this country with one cheap line. Gutfeld didn't flinch, though his throat tightened as he spoke. I'm not erasing anything. I'm pointing out reality. You can list accomplishments all day, but none of it changes the fact that you're not sitting in the Oval Office right now. Trump's jaw tightened. He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a hiss meant for Gutfeld, but caught by every microphone in the studio. You're nothing without me. Remember that. This show, this network. Half your audience came here because of me, and now you're cashing in on stabbing me in the back. The words stung, but Gutfeld didn't back away. His reply was sharp, deliberate. If your entire movement collapses because one host refuses to repeat your talking points, then maybe it wasn't as strong as you think, gasps rippled through the crew. Even the hardened producers behind the cameras froze. Trump straightened, his face unreadable, but his hands clenched at his sides. History will remember what I did, Trump said finally, his voice colder than it had been all night. "And history will remember what you did too." The air was electric, suffocating. Both men stood locked in a silent stare, neither willing to blink, as millions of Americans watched one of the most shocking moments in modern political television unfold live. Trump froze completely, staring at Gutfeld with a look of pure betrayal. The silence felt endless, but was probably only seconds. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper, yet it carried more menace than all his shouting had. "I didn't lose anything, Greg. But you just lost something very important. You lost my respect. You lost the respect of millions of Americans who trusted you. And you lost any claim to being a real conservative journalist." Gutfeld stood his ground, though his voice trembled at the edges. "Mr. President, I never claimed to be a journalist. I'm a comedian who asks questions, but I won't apologize for asking them, and I won't apologize for expecting honest answers." Trump began removing his microphone, his movement slow and deliberate, the gesture final. "Honest answers. Greg, you wouldn't recognize an honest answer if it hit you in the face. You've bought into the same lies as everyone else in this corrupt media system. The corrupt media system that you're walking away from right now instead of defending your positions." Gutfeld shot back, raising his voice as he sensed Trump preparing to leave. Trump froze mid-motion, then turned deliberately toward the camera, bypassing Gutfeld completely and speaking straight to the audience at home. "Folks, this is exactly what I've been talking about for years. Even the so-called conservative media has been infected by the Washington swamp mentality. They'd rather attack me than defend the truth. Don't talk to my audience like I'm not here, Mr. President." Gutfeld interrupted sharply. "If you have something to say it to me directly." Trump turned back to him, his expression colder than anyone in the studio had ever seen. "Fine, Greg. You used to be someone I could count on. You used to understand what we were fighting for. But tonight you've shown that you're just another establishment puppet, more interested in approval from the right people than in standing up for what's right. I'm standing up for what's right by asking you hard questions." Gutfeld snapped back. "That's exactly what's right. That's what the First Amendment is for. That's what a free press does. That's what democracy looks like." "Democracy?" Trump spat the word with contempt. "Greg, democracy died when they stole that election. And people like you helped bury it by refusing to fight back." The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Gutfeld shook his head slowly, his anger fading into something heavier, sadder. "Mr. President, if that's really what you believe, then there's nothing left to talk about. You're living in a different reality than the rest of us." Hump finished unclipping his microphone and placed it carefully on Gutfeld's desk. "No, Greg, you're living in their reality. I'm living in the real world, where elections have consequences, and truth matters more than being liked by the media establishment." "Truth matters?" Gutfeld's voice cracked. "Then why can't you tell me the truth about losing the election? Why can't you admit that sometimes? Even great politicians lose sometimes." Trump stood up to his full height, towering over the seated Gutfeld. "Because I didn't lose, Greg. And the fact that you keep saying I did just proves this interview was a setup from the beginning." "A setup?" Gutfeld rose to his feet as well, his frustration boiling over. "The only thing set up here was a normal interview that you turned into a personal attack fest because you can't handle basic questions about your political future." Trump moved toward the exit, his Secret Service detail scrambling to adjust to his sudden movement. "My political future is going to be just fine, Greg, but your credibility, your reputation, your relationship with conservative America, that's what's in question now." "My relationship with conservative America?" Gutfeld called after him. "Mr. President, conservative America believes in the Constitution, in democracy, in accepting election results, even when we don't like them. That's what real conservatism looks like." Trump stopped at the studio door and turned back one final time, Real conservatism looks like fighting for what you believe in, even when everyone else gives up. Something you apparently never learned. And with that, Donald Trump walked off the Gutfeld Tonight set, leaving behind a stunned host, a shell-shocked studio audience, and millions of viewers who had just witnessed one of the most explosive moments in live television history. Gutfeld stood alone at his desk, breathing heavily, staring at the empty chair where Trump had sat just moments before. The studio was silent except for the hum of cameras still rolling, capturing every second of this unprecedented collapse in political civility. What started as a routine late-night interview had become something much bigger, a public rupture between two major conservative figures that would be analyzed and debated for years to come. The only question now was whether either man's reputation would survive what had just transpired on live television. So what do you think? Was Gutfeld right to push back with tough questions? Or did Trump have a point about being ambushed on what should have been friendly territory? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and let me know what other explosive political moments you'd like me to break down next.